Hi EVCS, welcome back to another episode of my cooking show. That's a terrible name for a cooking show. I need to think of a name for the cooking show. Actually, I'll ask you guys, could you guys send me suggestions for names for this cooking show? It'll be starring myself, Mr. McCants, and my brother Lance, wherever he is. He'll also be making another appearance on our show. I think since he's going to be staying with us for the whole time that we're all in this kind of quarantine, he'll be probably a big part of the show as it goes on. Send me suggestions for what you think the show should be called. I'd love to hear them, and then I will maybe try and decide a name from those. Another thing I would like as well is from you guys, send me any requests you have for certain things you learn or you'd like to learn how to make. And also feel free to make your own videos and send those in as well, because it'd be really cool to see what you guys are doing at home. The two things that I'm going to be doing for you today are quite simple. My first one is going to be the famous Mr. McCants' Pickles, my friends from 1A. You all remember making those last year. And then if you guys were in the cafeteria last year when we were selling our pickles, we also made a homemade salsa and chips that we did. And we also had the homemade hummus. If you're lucky enough to buy those pickles, this is how you're going to learn to make them right here in this kitchen right now. And then you guys can follow along at home. So that will be the first thing we do. And then the second thing is I'm going to make a homemade tomato sauce that we can use for some homemade pizzas. And we'll go over those ingredients a little bit later on. But first, let's get to the pickles. Okay, first thing for the pickles. You're going to want to make your pickling solution first. So that's basically the liquid that you keep your cucumber in after you've sliced it up. You're going to put your cucumber into this liquid. Preferably in a jar if you have it at home. If you don't have a jar, that's okay. You can just use like a Tupperware container, kind of like what I have the tomato sauce ingredients in right now. That'll work perfectly fine. Any Tupperware container, any sort of jar, if you got like a leftover peanut butter or jelly jar, something like that will work fine. So I already put in here 1 cup of the apple cider vinegar that I have at home. You can use plain clear vinegar as well. That's totally fine. Basically any vinegar except for like malt vinegar will work for this recipe. I also put in 1/3 cup of water into this because vinegar, if anybody's ever had vinegar on its own, it's a really strong, intense flavor, and it can be kind of nasty if you have it all on its own. So I put a little water in just to kind of mellow that out. And then I'm also going to put in, I already have a tablespoon of sugar in there. I'm going to probably put in another 1/2 tablespoon. So roughly a tablespoon and a half of sugar. I'll put the ingredients in the description down below this video so you guys can check it out. The amount of sugar you put in might be different for different people. I like my pickles a little bit more tart, so a little bit more vinegary. If you like your pickles a little bit sweeter, you might want to put a little bit more sugar in there. So what I'm also going to put into this little pickling solution are some black peppercorns. A few rolled off there, but that's fine. I'm just going to put the peppercorns right in there. And then if you want as well, on top of that, you can put a little bit of celery seeds, which I have here. That's what the celery seeds kind of look like there. I'm just going to put a few of those in. I like this flavor of celery. If you don't like the flavor of celery, then don't put them in. No problem if you don't have them. And then also, if I can get this bag open. There we go. I got some mustard seeds in here as well. I'm just going to sprinkle a few of those in, just to like a little pinch. Just a little pinch mustard seeds in there. I like mustard a lot, so the flavor of mustard kind of getting put into the pickles as well is pretty good for me. Again, if you don't like mustard seeds, then don't put them in. So this is going to go onto the stove and we're going to heat it up. You want it to heat up just so it's warm, just warm enough to dissolve your sugar. And actually, before I forget, your salt as well. So I'm going to throw in about, let's see, 1/2 tablespoon of salt. Just a 1/2 one like that's totally fine. I'm just going to mix that all in. I'm going to turn on my stove while I mix that in. So you will need help of an adult if you're not allowed to use the stove all on your own. I imagine most of you are not. Or if you got an older sibling or cousin to help you out, that works fine too. Just make sure you got somebody who's responsible enough to be handling the stove. So I'm gonna put that on my stove back here. It's on just kind of a low heat. And next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut our cucumber and get it into this jar. So as soon as our liquid is heated up, it's all ready to go. So like I said in my last video, you don't need a super sharp knife. A little steak knife will work fine. If you're allowed to use the big, sharp, scary knife, that's fine too. I'm just going to cut off the end here. You don't need that. Remember, always wash your vegetables and your fruits. I washed this one already. Let it dry out a little bit. So I'm going to go nice and thin for this. If you want to go chunky, like you like a chunkier pickle, that's totally fine.
Chunky.
If you want to cut it down... cap out of the way. If you want to cut it down the length like that and you have like a big long piece, you could do it like that. It's whatever sort of shape you like. So I'm going to go slightly chunky with these ones. I'm going to be making some burgers later on, so I want a slightly chunkier pickle for mine. So yeah, they can be also different widths, like some of them might be thinner, some might be like a little bit thicker, that's fine. So I'm going to put some of these in so I can make a little room on my chopping board. And if I'm listening right now, I can kind of hear this hissing a little bit. It's still not quite dissolved. So you can still see, if you look in the camera there, you can still see there's some crystals at the bottom here with my sugar and my salt. Not quite mixed in yet, but that's fine. That'll get there. And the cool thing about this recipe is the longest part of this whole thing is basically just cutting up your cucumber. That's the thing that's going to take the longest. And then waiting for your pickles to kind of get all pickly with the vinegar there. That'll take a little while too. Okay, so get the rest in there. So you can see one cucumber goes a long way. It's basically filled up this whole jar almost. So I got that all ready to go. Got my lid ready. And one thing you want to do before you put this in here is really make sure you clean your jar out really well. Just, regular dish soap and water is totally fine. And if you want to go extra on it, you can put a little boiling water in there and rinse it out. Again, get an adult to help you out with the boiling water part because that can be dangerous. And then here you can see I got a little steam coming off of this. That's fine. If I smell it, I smell a little vinegar there, but that's all good. That's what you want. And you can see if you look in there, there's none of my sugar or salt crystals in there anymore. The only thing you can see is the vinegar and then all the different little seeds and peppercorns floating around in there. Again, if you don't want the seeds or you don't want the peppercorns, you don't have them at home, that's totally fine. The most important part for this recipe is your sugar, your salt, and your vinegar. And then a little bit of water as well if you don't want it too vinegary. So I'm pouring that straight in there. Nice and easy does it.
I'll give you a nickel for a pickle. No? How about 5 cents?
I'm just gonna make sure that's there. Oh, got a couple peppercorns that being a little stubborn. Get in there. Cool. Put that down right there. And then you can see that's in there. They're all kind of swimming around. If your cucumbers aren't completely covered by the vinegar, that's okay, because what's going to happen as these pickle and as the vinegar kind of saturates all the cucumber and gives it all that nice pickly flavor, water is going to be released from the cucumber, and that's going to kind of bring up the level of our liquid, so that should be all fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put a lid on this like so. If you have a Tupperware container, you just put the lid on top of that. The liquid from the vinegar isn't even that hot. It's just kind of warm so that it dissolved the salt and the sugar, so I can actually hold this in my hands like so. So I'm just going to put the lid on this, and then we're just going to let it kind of chill. Usually it's going to take, if you want like a good strong pickle, a few hours to really get it going. You might even want to wait overnight for the pickle to really activate. But you can still eat this in a couple hours, and it won't be quite as strong and as soft with the cucumber, but you'll still get that flavor of the vinegar and everything else in there. Cool. So I'm going to leave this to the side. And then we're going to get next onto our marinara sauce.
LeBron James!
Okay, so for our marinara sauce, we need 4 vegetables. We have an onion, carrot and some garlic, and then a celery stick as well. So for the celery, I'm just gonna cut off the end here. So there's this white bit. Remember, there are ants on a log. You don't need the white part for that. So I'm gonna throw this into my garbage. I got a little garbage container here. It's a little bit easier to have like a little container for all of your scraps next to you, so you don't have to hang out by the garbage can where it probably stinks a little bit anyway. I'm gonna cut off the leaves here. Put that in there as well. Then I'm just gonna cut it up into chunks. So what you want to do with your vegetables is you want to get them really finely blended. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to put them in my blender, which I have with me here. But if you don't have a blender at home, you can still use a cheese grater instead. So what you would do is you just, like you would grate a piece of cheese, you're just going to grate up this celery here. So you're going to get all these kind of stringy bits, but that's okay. You can actually just take a knife, and with the stringy bits, you can kind of just chop them up even smaller. Okay? And then you just got these nice little fine bits, and those will dissolve into your sauce. And you might have a little bit of chunk in there, but that's okay, all right? So I'm gonna just take these bits, which I'm gonna get in anyway, which is all going into the blender. That's that. So I washed the celery before I did this. Make sure you wash your vegetables. This carrot isn't washed yet, but I'm gonna peel the carrot first to get all the skin off of this. And then I'll just give it a little rinse at the end. For your onion and for your garlic, you don't need to wash those because they have the skin on them already, which protects the part that you're actually going to be using from any sort of bacteria or any sort of germs or viruses or whatever it might be out there, okay? So I'm just going to go around the edge here. I'll cut off this little tip here in just a minute. Right there. I'm just going to go with the tip there a little bit. Give it a quick rinse. Okay, so I've rinsed my carrot. Just gonna cut off the end here. Throw that in the scraps there, and then that will be good. Actually, before I put it in the blender, I want to get into smaller pieces. Just do it into smaller chunks so it fits in the blender better. And like I said, if you don't have the blender, carrot is even easier to grate than grating a piece of celery. So you can just grate it up like that, and then you can use that for your sauce, okay? Put that in there. All right, next part's gonna be the garlic. To peel the garlic, what I like to do is sometimes you get the skin already loose on the garlic, and you can just kind of pull it off like that really easily. And then I just put it into the garbage there. And then if it's kind of fully intact, the skin, you can see there's not really any cracks or anything in it there. You can just take it, you put it on your board, you put your palm on it there, and you can just kind of press down. You hear a little crack, and you'll see these kind of like lines in there. You can see where it's cracked, and then it's easier to peel off your bits of garlic there. So now that I have that loosened up a little bit, I'm just gonna take my nail, kind of get in around it. And there we go, it should come off pretty easy. So just make sure all the skin's off of that. And the garlic, you don't need to chop it up any smaller because it's already pretty small. So I got 1 carrot, 1 celery, 2 pieces of garlic, and then the onion, which is always the trickiest part because the onion, the skin's a little bit harder to get off. Also, this is where the waterworks come in a little bit, but you just gotta power through that. So I'm gonna cut off the top. I'm gonna cut off the little nub here. So actually what I'm doing is you have this kind of nub where the roots are. And what you want to do is you just want to kind of take it really close to where that root is there. So you're keeping this part intact. And this little nub or this little circle here, that's what keeps your onion together. So if you were to chop or slice your onion or whatever it was and you want to keep the onion together so it's easier to cut, you want to keep this part intact. This part's kind of like binding on a book, which keeps all the pages together. So if you're going to cut the onion in half, you're going to cut right where that nub is there. We're going to cut right down the middle. And we have our 2 halves. I'm just going to get this garbage out of the way. That's why it's easy to have a container. You can just pick it up, sweep everything in there, and it's all good. I'm going to get the skin off of this. So sometimes you'll notice on an onion, depending how old they are, there can be kind of like these little rotten layers like that there. That's totally fine. Just take that off. Take off any little black or bruised bits if you want. You can still use the onion underneath. I'm just going to cut off this little bruised bit here. Get that in the garbage. And so the reason I kept the nub on, this is just for if you're going to be dicing your onions. So you can see the little nub here at the end is keeping all of these layers together. And then what you can do with your knife is you can come along here and you can, as long as you don't go you don't want to go all the way past this part here. You want to try and keep it so that your knife is staying just short of that nub. And then what's going to happen is if you slice it like that, it's all together still, but it's all like in a fan, kind of like a blooming onion. And then, oh, some of it came off there, but that's okay. And then if you chop it the other way, or slice it the other way, that's how you get your nice fine diced onion. So you can use that for other dishes like soups. You can use it for the pizza sauce if you want a little bit chunkier. I'm gonna actually put all of it into the blender, so I'm just gonna take this apart. I just wanted to show you guys how to kind of dice an onion. I'm gonna take off the nub bit here, and all these bits can go in the box. I'm gonna get the skin off the other piece. Take off that little bit at the end. Whew. Onion is strong. Tear it up a little bit. There we go.
Are you crying, Mr. McCants?
I'm crying, yes. Oh, it's a little emotional. It's all good. Oh.
Woo! Are you okay, dude? Are you sure? You need this? No? No, you're probably right. This is the last one. Probably gonna need this.
So we got all this ready to go into our blender, and I'll show you that step next. So we're on to the next phase of our sauce making. We got our pickles over here still hanging out, just kind of getting all pickly, chilling in their jar. Got my Visco Grill water bottle here that 4th grade loves to remind me about. So we got all of our chunky vegetables here. As you can see, this is the grated up stuff. So again, if you do not have a blender, you could always use a cheese grater to kind of grate all that up. Your carrots, your celery, your garlic, and your onion. So I'm just gonna put all this stuff in here right now, including the grated stuff. Put that all in there. Cool. So I got all this stuff in here. I'm gonna put a little bit of, I got olive oil here that I'm gonna put in. A little bit of olive oil. And then I'm just gonna throw the lid on this real quick. The cool thing about this is that it only turns on if you have the lid on properly. So there's the lid unlocked and it pulses, but if I had the lid off even a little bit, even if it's on top and it's not locked in properly for safety, it's not gonna work. So blend it all up. Let's have a look inside here. It's mostly shredded up. I probably want to get it a little bit more shredded up. I'm going to kind of scrape all the sides off here. Whew. Onion is strong. Scrape down. Put that on there. Oh, I have to put the lid on. Blend that up. So that's good. Let's see here. It's pretty fine. Doesn't need to be too fine. If it's a little bit chunky, that's all right. Sometimes your tomato sauce is going to be a little bit chunky. So I'm going to get a little heat on there. Kind of a medium heat. Oh, my eyes are tearing up. So yeah, it gets a little emotional when you're making this sauce, especially because of the onion, but I tell you, the flavor and the finished result is definitely worth it. So I'm going to turn down my heat. So this is like it on full blast. I'm going to turn it down a little bit so it's on a nice easy medium. You want to go nice and slow with the sauteing of your vegetables. Sauteing is just a fancy French word for frying your vegetables in a little bit of oil. Put that in, got my olive oil in here. Just gonna swirl that around a little bit. Again, you're gonna wanna get an adult to help you out with this, just to make sure you're keeping it safe. And then I'm just going to use my little rubber spatula here and I'll just scoop it right into there. I'm going to get this little guy out. Put him in the sink. Just make sure I scrape all the parts out. It's already smelling really good. This is super easy. You got your 4 vegetables, your onion, your carrot, your celery. Either grate it up with the cheese grater or blend it up with your blender. Right into your saucepan with a little bit of oil. And then you're just going to let that simmer. I'm going to put a little bit of salt in here now. So vegetables and fruits as well, all of them have water in them. Because plants need water to grow, right? So it makes sense that if they need water to grow, they'll have water inside of them, just like humans. Humans, I don't know if you guys learned this from Coach Welch yet, but maybe 3rd grade and 4th grade have. Our human bodies are actually made up of 75% water, so most of us are water as well. So the vegetables, like I was saying, has a little bit of water in it. And by putting salt into our vegetables at the beginning, that's going to help release some of the water out. And if you're releasing the water out, that's going to help this simmer better. It's going to stop it from burning on the bottom, and it's just going to help it cook a little bit nicer. So I like to put a little bit of salt at the beginning. Right. I'm going to put the blade back in here actually. So the tomatoes that I have are diced tomatoes, so they're kind of chunky. But if you go to Wegmans, Tops, Dashes, whatever it is you have it closest to your house, you can buy cans of tomatoes that are already blended, so it'll be like tomato sauce. You can actually buy marinara sauce or pizza sauce already made, so you don't have to do this if you don't want to. You can just buy a can of already made pizza sauce. I'm just showing you guys how to make it with all the vegetables and stuff because I thought it would just be a little bit more fun that way. So I'm going to get that in there. As you can maybe see, it's kind of chunky. You got those big bits of tomato in there. So if you're stirring this every once in a while, it's not going to burn on you. And you can see the color's kind of changing into more of like a yellow. It's all blending together. Cool. So blend you up. And so friends, once again, I'm going to leave the recipe in the description down below for the YouTube video. I'll probably do that for the first video as well. If you guys have any questions about how any of this is made, maybe you have a different way of making it yourselves, please comment below on the video, and I will respond to any of your comments, any of your questions if you have them, and if you have any ideas for what we can do for other videos, I'll make sure to respond to those too. Cool, so I'm just going to let this saute away for a little bit. Maybe try to bring the camera in a little bit closer so you can see. That's just kind of sauteing away there. And then once my vegetables have been sauteing and kind of frying there for at least 5 minutes, I try and make it last a little longer, maybe 10 minutes. You want to make sure you cook all this out. So if you can saute this for a little longer the better. So when you stir, you really want to make sure you scrape the bottom out so you don't get anything stuck down there. You cause it to burn. But our sauce is just about ready to get the tomatoes in there. So before, remember, it was all chunky. Now it's kind of nice and smooth, a little bit more saucy now, which is good. I'm just going to go ahead and get that right in there. Just bring you guys in a little bit closer. I need to get a cameraman. This thing isn't going to be the best, but hey, we work with what we got. Cool. So I got that in. Just gonna give that a little stir. There we go. I got that nice red color in there for our pizza sauce. Be there like that. I'm actually gonna go take this over to the sink. I'm gonna get a little bit of water in here to rinse out our extra tomato sauce and put it in there. And this is going to cook out for a while. So I got quite a bit of water, but the longer you let this simmer, the better the flavor is going to be at the end, okay? So I'm just going to kind of rinse it all out. Got my blade in there. I'm just going to swirl that around. Swirl, swirl, swirl that up. Get that baby in there. And then we play the waiting game, just like the pickles. Sometimes food and flavor takes a little bit of time to develop. So you can see this is pretty watery right now, but I'm going to let this cook and simmer away for a little while. And after it's all done, maybe 20 minutes, half an hour, you're going to get a nice, rich sauce. In fact, you could probably go longer than half an hour. If you got the time, you could go 40, 45 minutes. It's important, though, that you kind of keep an eye on it as well. You don't want to just let it hang out on its own for that time.
Hey, look, I'm a Tiger King. Ha-ha! Oh, hey, what's up? I'm a tiger here. All right. Oh, there you are. All right. It's Lance McCants here to help you guys out with a little pizza making. My brother Finn, or Mr. McCants, or whatever you call him, he went somewhere. I don't really care. Right, so for first things first is we got the oven rack out. So you're going to need an adult to help you out, or at least an older cousin, older brother or sister who knows how to handle some hot things. So make sure you got a towel ready for when you need to take it out of the oven. Right now the rack's still cold, so I can still touch it. That's all good. So yeah, get the rack out. So what you want for a tortilla pizza, at least, because the tortillas, when you put the sauce on them, the tortilla is going to get a little bit soft. But if you have it in the oven so that the air and all the heat's flowing around the whole tortilla, like on the bottom and on the top, then you know you're going to get a nice crispy crust with it. So I'm going to do it in 2 layers. Got the sauce here that we made. I'm going to put that right on the first layer. This is the bottom one here. Closer to the camera. So just spread that out. So it can be a little tricky to spread out with the rack underneath. That's okay. Just kind of feel it out. Get a little sauce on that. It's all good. And over there. So however you like it. If you like yours a little extra saucy, you can put a little extra sauce in there. If you don't like it quite as saucy, maybe put on a little bit less. So that's that. I'm going to get a little bit of cheese in between, kind of like a stuffed crust pizza, except this crust is stuffed the whole way through, not just at the end. Put that right on top. Boom, good to go. So I just like pepperoni, and I like peppers on my pizza along with the cheese and the sauce, which I almost forgot. But that's all good there. Put some sauce on that. Spread it all around. Go. Cool. Yeah, so that's probably about the right amount of sauce that I want on my pizza. Then we're going to go on with more cheese. Sprinkle that around there. Boom. Sprinkle that around there. A little bit over there. Cool. Now I'm going to go for some peppers next. If you want, you can put more cheese than that. I only have a little bit of cheese in the house right now, so I just want to make sure I'm saving some for my lunch tomorrow. And then, just wherever you feel like you want the pepperonis, just throw them on there. And then, boom. So the oven is currently at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. The temperature for this isn't super important. What's important is that it's hot enough to melt the cheese and get your pepperoni or your peppers nice and crispy. So it could be 400 degrees, it could be 350, maybe 425. The higher the temperature, the crispier your pizza is going to get. So if you like your pizza extra crispy, I would turn it up to 425 degrees. If you like it just a little bit crispy, 400. And if you don't want it too crispy, 350 degrees, okay? So we're going to get this into the oven. Again, you're going to want somebody's help if you're not able to. Straight in there. Make sure I keep an eye on it. I got a towel ready just in case I need to take it out of the oven, or when I need to take it out of the oven. And we're all good.
Beep, 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 beep. Beep, beep, beep.
water just went there. So I got my towel here. Again, you're going to want to make sure you got somebody else helping you out with this if you're not experiencing oven handling things. So, oh, this looks perfect. So I'm just going to slide this. Whoop. You might have to get a little hand on there for it out. I'm just do a little spin move there. Boom. It's looking pretty good. Those pepperonis got nice and crispy. I like my pizza extra crispy so you can see the edges are nice and dark now. That's going to go real good. So, real easy. I mean, we made our sauce. Our sauce, I know it took a little bit long, but look at how much sauce we got for all our pizzas. This is enough pizza sauce to last us all week. If we want to have lunch, if we want to have pizza every day of the week, we can do it. In fact, it might even last till next week. So I'm just going to cut my pizza into a half. So we got 1/2, 2 halves. I'm going to cut it, I think, into quarters. So quarters is going to be 4 pieces. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4 quarters for all you doing your fractions out there. And this looks great. I mean, usually people let this cool down, but I'm just going to bite right into it because it can't be that. That's really good. It's really good. I just want to eat it so bad. Good. It's good. You did a good job. So, if you got, we're all good. Oh, that's a terrible idea. Okay. If you have ideas for, not that idea, if you have ideas for food or pizzas or pickles that you got at home, make a video, send it to me and my brother. We'll watch it. We'll tell you what we think. If you got any questions, ask us some questions. Ask your teachers to ask us, or ask on the comments below in the YouTube comment section. Okay? Oh, it's hot. All right, you've been a wonderful audience. Whew. Whew. All right, we'll see you again next week. All right? Take it easy, EVCS. Love you.